Hey everyone, it's Mule Tip Tuesday again, and I thought this week I'd talk about our checklist. I refer to the checklist quite a bit, and a lot of you that have had issues, you've emailed us about or messaged us about or whatever, you know, I've referred to the checklist. So Sky said, well, why don't you do Mule Tip Tuesday and remind folks about that checklist and about each step. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to explain each step really, but I just want to go through the steps so that you know what the heck I'm talking about when I refer to that. But basically the checklist is what we teach in the clinics. So you guys have been to the clinics, all this stuff will, you know, maybe you might not even need to watch this unless you need a reminder. But those that haven't been to a clinic or something, maybe it'd be a way for you to kind of see what the heck we're talking about here. But I'm gonna give you the basic checklist that I think every single mule ought to know, regardless of whatever your discipline is. I don't care whether you're trail riding or you're roping or you're in dressage or jumping or just packing. It doesn't matter. All this stuff applies. This is just basically getting a mule broke. And those of you that are sending mules out to be trained, those of you that are training mules, these are just some basic things that every mule ought to know, and everybody riding a mule or handling a mule should know. So starting from the ground, okay, the very first step on the checklist is, can you send your mule by you? Can you send it to the left? Can you send it to the right? Those are pretty simple things, but if you can do those things, by the way, you will never have an issue with trailer loading. You'll never have an issue with getting a mule to go through a gate or through a barn or whatever, if you can do that. So step one, send your mule, okay? And we work on that in half circles. The next step that we talk about is send your mule in a circle on the ground. So you're working on halter driving on the ground. We're going in that circle. Step three is untracking the hind quarters and returning to a circle. And then step four is untracking the hind quarters and bringing the front across. You need to be able to move that front end too. So those are some basic things on the ground, and you can add to that a few others. There's two methods of backing up we teach. We teach the thumb down method and we teach the please go method. So you need to know both of them. And like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining each of these steps. That's for the clinics. And but I just want to go through that checklist. And then as well on the ground we work on lateral flexion, okay? And there's a whole bunch of other steps you can add, but those are the basic things that every mule ought to know on the ground, okay? So then taking that checklist into the saddle. First thing I do when I get on my mule is it needs to hang in there and wait for me and hold still. If my mule's not holding still, I have no right, at least in my opinion, I have no right to move on to any other step. I'm working on that. And so you gotta hang in there and wait. I like to keep my mule stand still for 10 to 15 seconds. You guys know that. Step two, I work on lateral flexion in the saddle. So that means I'll be able to flex them to the left and to the right. Okay, and they better not move their feet. If they're moving their feet, I have no right to move on to the next step. So I had to stay in there. All these steps are for a reason. You need to finish one before you move on, and they're in this order for a reason as well. So keep that in mind. So after I work on lateral flexion, then I might keep my mule centered. And usually, like in the clinics, we practice this by riding a circle. Is my mule centered? That means between my reins and between my legs. They need to be centered and not pushing on me. You know, there's lots of ways to tell if your mule is not centered. If they spook and jump out from under you, jump 5 feet to the side, they're not centered, okay? There's work to be done. Okay, so I work on keeping them centered. And from that circle, like I said, I like to practice it in a circle. But from that circle, I'll also work on untracking the hind quarters and returning to a circle, just like on the ground. And after I untrack the hinds, return to a circle, of course, the next step is to, you know, I like to work on a one rein stop. That's a good step in that checklist. Can I stop you with one rein? Okay, cool. All right. After the one rein stop, then I work on untracking the hind quarters and bringing the front across as well. It's the same move as we did on the ground, so I want to be able to work on that. And all this stuff is done with basically use of one rein. I haven't really pulled on them with two reins yet. It's all been one rein. It's all lateral work, okay? So after I bring, roll the hinds, roll the front, as I like to call it, then I start working on picking up a soft feel. So I pick up that soft feel. Then I start working on stopping with two reins, and I start working on backing up with two reins. Okay, so I work on those types of things. And you can get a lot more advanced than that, of course, but that's the basics of the checklist. From there on, we start getting more advanced, and we start adding more things to it, and you know, but like I said, those steps that I just mentioned, everybody ought to be able to do those things, no matter how you ride, what you do, and where you're going. Those are just such simple things, you know. And if your mule can do those things, at least, well, they're green. At least they're green. Okay. If they can't do those things, they're not even. You can't even call them green. Okay. But and it doesn't have to be perfect. But those are some things I work on, and I'm trying to get them perfect on my mules. But anyways, hopefully those things will help you. That's the first few steps on the checklist. There's a reason we do those things in order. And like I said, we go into depth on each of those steps in the clinics. That's what the clinics are for. So if you have questions, let me know. Hope to see you guys at a clinic sometime. Hope this checklist helped you. And those of you that have been to a clinic, hopefully this reminds you some things you ought to be working on. And maybe next week I'll post the more advanced steps. That might be a good idea. So God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you.